Welcome everyone to the today's First Beat Sports webinar, Culture, Conditioning, and Load Management in NCAA Basketball. My name is Benjamin Jensen. I've been with First Beat for the last 11 years, taking care of the U.S. Canadian sales and research. Today it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Henry Barrera, a good friend of mine. We've been working together since 2016 when he was with the Liberty men's basketball program, and we've continued ever since with his new role with the University of Alabama, which he took in 2022. And a couple quick notes. Please drop any questions you have in the Q&A box we have, and we should get to those towards the end of the webinar. And then also, this webinar will be recorded and automatically emailed to everybody that has signed up. So getting that out of the way, Hen, it's great to see you again, and really looking forward to what you have to see today.
Man, it's good to see you, man. It's always good to catch up. I'm super excited just to share thoughts and learn, man.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hey, let's just get straight to it. Let's get into why we're here today talking about load management and why is it important to monitor internal load in basketball?
Man, I do things a little bit different sometimes. I'm going to start off with a quote from C.S. Lewis, and he says, "It's not the load that breaks you; it's the way you carry it." And I think that has implications for life. I think it has implications for training. I think it has implications for the game. So, for us, man, tracking internal load is just one layer of what we do. Uh, Really, what it does is it gives us insight and information on how athletes are responding to stress, And I think a lot of people think the stress is only from the lift or the game, but it's from all of life. So, really, internal load gives us a reflection of the current physiological state of an athlete. And that's really important to us because we can make adjustments based on that. So, uh, you feel free to dig in however you want. I have a couple things rolling around in my head that I think would be important for people. What I want to do is make this as practical as possible for anybody listening.
Absolutely. I just wanted to touch on, you talked about those layers that you have. So kind of what are the layers that you apply with Bama basketball? As far as you've got first beat, what else are the layers?
Yeah, so first I'll give you a performance paradigm. I want you to think about lifestyle, that's kind of the floor, and then we have training, and then we have the game. What we try to do is reverse engineer. So the game, I have a saying I call it the game is the metric. Really, it comes down to can you perform on the court, when you're playing at a high level. So for us, we have internal load, we have external load, and then we have a subjective piece of just making sure our athletes are good just as humans. That's kind of a wellness questionnaire. We have an informal and a formal way of doing that. So yeah, you just dig in however you want.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned kind of staying in there. So game like demands and game like performance. Obviously, you could be the greatest practice player in the world, but if you can't do it on the games, you're a bit out of luck there. So I know at least at Bama with First Beat, you've recorded every single game, and I know that goes back to your days at Liberty. You recorded every single game. Why is that game base so important for you?
Man. So again, reverse engineering, working back from the game. So when we look at it like a profile from the game, there's a lot of red. When I say red, I mean uh, bouts of movement or exercise, whatever you want to call it, that are above 90%, right? So I think you have to get players and athletes acclimated to being in that zone. Some people want to call it a zone, whatever you call it. I don't care what you call it. It's players getting to a threshold that really pushes them physiologically, and I think that there's also a psychological component that plays into that as well. I'm going to give you a very very cheesy example of kind of how I view this stuff. So my daughter is studying in Italy. I dropped her off last week. Great for her. So I'm on the plane for 10 hours, and my calves kind of cramp up a little bit, and I didn't think anything of it. I went stretched out. I came back. Well, over the next 10 days, my calves got tighter and tighter. Right. So I get home and I call my doctor immediately at 7:15 a.m. I'm at the doctor. The first thing he does is check my vitals. What are your vitals? Heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, those sort of things. So heart rate to me gives us like a picture of what we need, and then we can kind of pair back from that. And then how do we train that? So we can train that. For us, it's interval based. We do a lot of like accumulation. So you'll find us on a hill doing, you know, 6 to 12 10-yard sprints up a hill with max recovery. We might shorten the recovery at times, but those are just little snapshots of how the having heart rate, real-time heart rate helps us out.
Have you used it at all as far as like your high minute, low minute guys? Because I know it's easy to keep your focus on those high minute guys, so they got the highest load. But do you kind of do the balancing act with the lower minute guys too?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We call them developmental days. So like on a game day, we kind of have like by the time we get 10 games in the season, we know who's going to play and who's not going to play, or the minute kind of guidelines. And so our developmental group will play 3-on-3, maybe 5-on-5 if they can pick up guys. But we want to make sure that we're kind of keeping them on the same wavelength as the rest of the guys, so we don't have guys that are falling behind conditioning wise. So that's one of the ways we use it. The other way that I've really enjoyed is like if we do a quote conditioning session. We did this a lot at Liberty. We put it on the big screen, and every athlete can get feedback, real time feedback. And I think there's a guy, Joel Jamieson, who I think is one of the world's best in conditioning and heart rate. Um, but he talks a lot about controlling your heart rate, like learning to operate in a threshold. And for me, what I'm telling our guys is I want you to be able to operate just at peace at 90%. Some people when they get to 90%, they're like, man, the world's falling. This is over.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And until you taste those little pieces, it's really hard to explain it to a guy. This is what 90% really feels like.
Have you seen any of them be able to, when you say control that heart rate, have they been able to step up to a free throw line and be able to actually calm down while they shoot those? I mean, is that
Yeah,
part of the mix there?
that's pretty cool, man. That's good stuff. We actually did a little bit of that at Liberty. We tracked heart rates and even coherence, like breathing, respiratory rates. And yeah, we could get guys to calm themselves down. And it's pretty natural for guys that played at a high level or have been playing for a long time. They understand that that's the time to, take a breath and really control. It's amazing to me how connected all this is. Breathing controls heart rate. And so there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, definitely. And so when we're still kind of on the load management type, and so if we go to like say acute to chronic, is that a variable that you use with the team?
We do, there's kind of mixed reviews on acute to chronic. Tim Gavitt's probably the pioneer with that stuff. I'm a big fan. I think it gives you kind of a sense of where athletes are at a sweet spot. And so I use acute to chronic just on the software, on the first beat software, like where I can pull it up. And I like to see it over time. So for me, the way I break down training is like 7, 14, and 21. Those are you kind of have a macro view and a micro view. So I love that you can see the micro, the actual day, but it really starts to make sense when you look at it over 7, 14, and 21 days, where you can say, okay, we had like 4 high days in a row, and maybe a soft tissue injury or something like that. So, again, I want to make this practical. Sometimes I think about like you have a sports car, are you treating it like an economy car? Or if you have an economy car, are you treating it like a sports car and it's always in the red? At some point you're going to have trouble. So we use the acute to chronic just to look at longer views, 7, 14, 21 days.
Okay, and yeah, and I think yeah, as you mentioned, Tim Gavitt's, that's where we based our sweet spot. I was curious, so off his research, we put our sweet spot zero point 0.8 to 1.2, but he also says himself that other team, you may have a higher sweet spot or a lower sweet spot. I'm assuming because I've seen your data for, Liberty versus Bama now. I would assume your sweet spot might be a little bit higher. You might be 1 to 1.4. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, no doubt. Probably I don't know if you remember this, but when I got to Bama, we had our first week, and I called you and I was like, "Hey, man, I think these sensors are broken. They're double what and it's a really cool thing. At Liberty, we played at one of the slowest paces in the country. We controlled the game, and we had a lot of success. Here we play at one of the fastest paces in the country, and we have a lot of success. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Um, the training based on heart rate at Liberty was very, very consistent. We worked in aerobic zones. We did anaerobic work as well. But here it's very, very intermittent and it's very fast. So we try to match the training to how we're trying to play.
Yeah, I remember that phone call very well because I kind of hit the panic button too. I popped in your data, I hit data export, data error, and I said, "No, no, it's really good quality data. Those are your numbers. That's what we're going to roll with now."
Yeah. No, so besides that, man, just getting acclimated to how we do things here at the pace we play, it's been really insightful to have first beat and just be able to look in real time. And Nate Oates, man, he's a forward thinker. A lot of people don't know, but I think he's got a degree in kinesiology or something like that. Uh, but he's into what we're doing, so it's not uncommon in practice for him to come over and check the iPad and, hey, how we doing trimp wise? Why is this guy high? Why is this guy low? Which is again, here's one of the thoughts rolling around in my head, Ben, is uh, the stress response from individual players. So let's say you and I, we go out and run a mile, right? So a mile for me might be really, really easy. For you, maybe not so much. And it all depends on the exposures that we've had the last year. That's the macro view. But when we take that to the micro view and we talk about like what did you eat, how did you sleep, what's your lifestyle like, that could affect the next day's performance, you know? So we have these big picture type things, and then we have these kind of in the dirt type things that we're looking at.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, unless you got an oxygen tank with you, I can't go run a mile with you right now, man. But I'm gonna be working on improving that.
All right,
Uh,
all right.
so yeah, all jokes aside. So while we're here, actually, kind of talking about the Liberty Bama switch. So I know you had the a Trimp bank at Liberty, roughly working with 1,000 Trimp points. Can you maybe explain a little bit, kind of how you use the Trimp bank and what kind of how you applied that, and if you use that at Bama now?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of my favorite metrics. If you're listening, I don't know how much, people know about Trent, but it's a training impulse and it's a measure of intensity and duration. Uh, so for the way that I explain it to our guys, it's kind of like a composite number. I can use that to quantify training load, and it's one metric. So I want to make it clear that everything doesn't hinge on Trimp alone. We look at a couple layers of this, but Trimp gives me a really, really concrete number, a clear number that I can share with our coaching staff. And so an example would be like, hey, coach, a hard practice or a hard game is about 300 on a trim score, right? So for me, I know like within about 90 minutes, there's kind of a scale like 0 to 70 is an easy day, 70 to 140 is going to be a moderate day, and over 140 is going to be a hard day. And that's based on 90 minutes. So we go 2 hours, our trim is about 300, 325. To me, that's high. And so and I don't share this information every single day with coach. I tend to, give it a couple days and see how we do, and then make a suggestion if needed.
Okay, great. And then also, as far as load management, and when we're talking about, I know when you talk about the NBA and you hear load management, you think about players sitting out, you think about, the arguments of Jordan and Stockton used to play for, they missed 2 games in their whole careers. Kind of, what does load management kind of mean, or how do you apply load management with Bama?
Look, I'm going to take you back to how I started. It's not the load that breaks you, it's the way you carry it. All right. And so the way that I think about that, I'm going to give you 3 layers. In life, I think about you have to have good people with you, your circle of people, right? In the weight room, it's not the load that breaks you, it's the way you carry it. So, we could do front squats, back squats, goblet squats. If a player isn't carrying the load right, we're going to have issues. We're going to have trouble there. Hey, coach, it hurts my back, whatever. And then in the game, Daniel Bove talks about why we train, right? He talks about raising your functional power and your functional capacity. Functional power is your output, right? And then the functional capacity, that's how much can you tolerate, right? So I think the biggest misconception in load management is that you're just resting people. You're just sitting them out. Really, to me, it's the opposite. We're trying to use this internal, external data to help them to do more, to reach their full potential. And so there's I have so many strings that are tied to my brain. You know how I think, you know how I work. But during my time at Nike, we talked a lot about the fitness fatigue model, right? I think that's by Bannister, whoever. Um, but anyway, like there's a cost for being fit, right? If you're doing it right, there's fatigue, there's soreness, there's other things that come with that. So if you don't touch those, um, you don't get the results you want. And so when you start to kind of peel back the layers of load management is meant for like for communication. It's meant for athletes to do more, in my opinion. Some people could agree, but to me, it's to help them get to a better spot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more about, maybe players have concern that, oh, what is this data gonna, are they gonna bench me because, I need a break or something. I've never seen it used in that way. It's only, we want to keep you on the court. We're going to keep you healthy and get you as many minutes as possible.
Yeah, I think that started early on, like, and I try to stay away from that as much as possible, because it's data in a just like in a silo is dangerous to me, right? So here's an example. Let's say I'm using a force plate, right? Uh, Athlete comes in, they see, hey, I didn't jump as high as I normally jump, right? It could have been one fluke jump. It could have been something else. It could be that they have, some sort of injury or, a precursor to an injury, right? But if I just take that one data point and try to communicate that, that doesn't make any sense, you know? So I ask guys all the time, how much do you want me to tell you? How do you want me to use this data with you? You know, some guys like to know everything about what's happening in their body. Other guys, hey, coach, if you see any red flags, yellow flags, let me know. And that's how I operate.
Nice. Now, when you have these kind of really high stress, I won't say situations, but periods. Let's say if we're talking about conference tournament time where you might have 3 games in 4 days, March Madness where you've got games and you got 2 weeks of travel across country. How do you adjust your approach during those times?
Man, I'm kind of a nerd on this stuff. So I'll give you an example. This year we went to the tournament. I have the next like 7, 14, 21 days planned out. You know, all case scenarios. I'll share those with the players, the coaches. Here's kind of our theme. Here's our goal. Here's like, hey, we're gonna travel these 2 days. We might want to have a sensitivity to how guys are responding just to the travel piece. Um, Man, this is where Clark Holter, he's our director of sports medicine. Amanda Branson, our director of sports nutrition. That's our performance team. So we talk in depth about like what can we do nutritionally, what can we do from a treatment and a rest standpoint, and how can we get these guys back up to their prime level.
Wow, so it's truly like a team effort there. Then you have real,
Oh, for
sounds like
sure,
you've
yeah.
got
Yeah.
nice. And
Constant,
that,
constant communication with coaching staff. You know, like I said, Oates, he's a numbers guy. He can handle a lot, like from a data standpoint. So he's always asking like where we at, where we going, you know, where we've been. And so, and it, you know, I'm fortunate. He gives me a voice in staff meetings to share thoughts on like here's where we're at. He doesn't always agree with them. That's okay. That's part of working in this environment. But he uses the data to make adjustments.
And that's one of the huge, if I call it one of the downfalls I do see sometimes is when a lot of these strength coaches come frustrated that uh, I've seen some of the most beautiful spreadsheets in the last decade, from Excel, some amazing work. And then they provide this to the head coach and it's basically fallen on deaf ears, okay, hey, thanks, good work. And there's no actionable results from that. And so I think that's great to hear that you have so much communication between not just head coach, but medical nutrition there to get things rolling.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the most valuable things I've learned over the last 20 years just in working with athletes is you have to find a way to engage, educate, and support. That's kind of my philosophy on all of performance. So how can I present this data to you in such a way where it interests you, that you know it's beneficial, you know? So it's always about purpose first, and then um, the support piece is the partnership, you know. So when guys come in and I talk to recruits or their families, man, the my favorite time is when we build a relationship and it becomes a partnership. It's not me telling you what to do. It's you giving me feedback on coach. Man, when we get to the red and this heart rate zone, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like, okay, let's talk about that. You know, maybe we should touch that a little more so it becomes more normal to you. You know, you can handle yourself in that. Yeah. So those are just the little conversations, you know, that I try to have with players.
And yeah, on those meaningful conversations I see, because now you're working with data, trying to translate some data points, like you said, some kids may not be interested or even want to see. But let me see if I can share this real quick. A couple examples that you gave me. And I do apologize. My marketing team is going to get after me pretty badly. I forgot to run the intro slides. And so let me get credit for those real quick. So here's the intro slide number one. You guys can find the information about us, but this is First Beat worldwide. We've got 1,000 teams, every sport you can name. Um, Real quickly, what we've been talking about, as you've heard, so you've Sports Sensor, you've got your live feedback via the app, and then you've got the cloud software to work with the data. Um, Now, what I did want to show when we were just talking about what Hen was saying is this is what I really like about something as simple as putting a logo, an action photo, uh, types of different gamification. Uh, and I know these are customized and you spent some time working with these, but I'm assuming you get a lot better response when you have these types of things on the reports for those players.
Yeah, anytime you can make it personable, you know, like kind of individualize it, and then you kind of show a purpose behind that. I think it hits better, you know. And I'm trying to drop you seeds, man, just things that would help people. So one of my mentors, Jim Radcliffe, he talked about how people consume information, right? And so some people are going to need one word, some people will need a sentence, some people will need a paragraph, others will need a dissertation on what you're talking about, you know? So I think it's learning your athletes, understanding, and I'm so corny, man. Hey, how do you like to receive information? You want me to text you? You want me to FaceTime you? Do you want me to email you? You want me to call you? You know, so I think you can go a long way. And that's even with whoever you're working for, your boss, you know, for me, it's Nate Oates. I ask him, hey, you know, how do you want this information? Typically, I'll send him a text message on Sundays and give him a snapshot of where we're at. And remind me, I'll share this with whoever's watching, but I have a scratch pad and it's real simple. It's in Excel, and literally I can plan out day by day and just give a suggestion like, hey, Monday we want to be at about 150, 175. Tuesday we're going to go a little bit and we're going to be over 250. A Wednesday, let's bring it back down. Or if guys are recruiting and they're out, we might front load the week and then we might taper off, you know, towards the end. So really useful.
Yeah, and on this kind of that same note, when you talk about when you talk to the players, if uh kind of language, so when you've said this before, keeping the language human. Can you kind of go on that a little bit too?
Yeah, man. So look, if I went to a player and said, "Hey, your trimp is like 25 points over yesterday, and for the last 7 days, it's probably, you know, 75 or whatever the situation is," or I can come up and I can say, "Hey, Ben, man, I see a little trend in your workload. How do you feel? You know, tell me about your performance." You know, and it's so simple. It's so simple, and it doesn't always go that simple because some guys, you got to remember in this environment all the guys that I work with are they're trying to be pros, right? And so they get pissed off about stuff. You know, they don't always want, you know, the heart rate strap. They'll take it off, they'll throw it in practice. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes. I'm gonna clean it off. I'm gonna go give it to them. Hey man, this is really valuable information. I think it could help you play at your highest level. You know, so it's just making it as simple, as concise, as succinct as possible, where they understand it, they know the purpose of it. It's for their benefit. So that's what I mean by humanizing language.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, especially about tossing the straps, because yeah, when I got to your practice, I saw what you were actually talking about with these things flying off and that. But I think if the word isn't buy-in, I know it's not the greatest word, but I do get a lot of people coming up saying, "Hey, I got 10 guys that wear the sensor, but I got this one doesn't want to wear it." And I think just kind of what you said is going about it that way, just using the basic terms, hey, this is really beneficial if you can use this, as opposed to, hey, you have to wear this because everybody else is type of a situation.
Man, no doubt. So look, again, I'm trying to drop some seeds, man, make this practical. So I live my life by two principles. One is authentic pursuit. I think when people have an authentic pursuit, you're drawn to them. You want to know how they're doing it, why they're doing it. And so that's for me where I base it from. I love what I do, man. I'm so blessed. I'm fortunate to be able to do this the last, 15, 20 years. It's been, man, I wear sweatpants to work every day. I show up. I get a sweat. I love it, man. I love being with these guys. So that's the first piece, authentic pursuit. I think when you see that, you start to see people who have fruit in their life, right? And so it's like, man, that guy has evidence of excellence, like whether a player, a coach, whoever. And then the last piece is relational equity. I think when you really sincerely love people and put people first, they know it. Like you can't fake that, right? And so that gives you a voice. You know, I have a lot of people in my life who've earned a voice. And so they say, Hen, you're not doing that. I'm not doing it. Or, Hen, you're doing this. And I'm doing it because they've earned a voice in my life and I trust them. So that's what I try to do with our players. I try to love them. I try to serve them, in a way that's going to benefit them, just teach them how to live. I learn as much from them as they do from me.
And I got to admit, I have to use your name when I have a team coming up with some of those frustrations, because they'll actually say, "So hey, what's Hen doing at BAMO? How are they? What are they wearing? They got some specialized stuff, these customized." I said, "No, they wear the straps," and they're almost in shock because they know that you're dealing with, a couple NBA draft guys, a couple possible, five-star recruits coming in. So I'm really glad I'm actually able to reference you in that light.
Look, this is another little seed for whoever's listening and kind of in my position or want to use first beat. So literally, I used to just give the guys the heart rate strap here. Now typically, so I get a physical touch, and I can ask them how you doing. I'll have them pull their jersey up. I'll put the strap on, and I'll make sure it's positioned. Hey man, is it too tight, too loose? Does it itch? Just ask them questions. And look, man, we're all human. So like for me, I wore a heart rate strap. a lot. Like when I train, I put one on and see where I'm at, and sometimes it just doesn't feel right. I'll take that thing off, and I'll come back to it later. So it's that's life.
No, I like that. And I'm glad, again, I'm glad I can reference you for that because a lot of people are surprised that, it's Bama basketball. They got to have some amazing customized stuff. So, no, man, it's the strap and they just get down to business.
We got great dudes, man. We got great dudes.
Um, and yeah, if we go a bit to, let's see, kind of some first beat data use cases here. So, how do you plan your week kind of with the help of first beat?
Yeah, like I said, I alluded to a scratch pad, and if you remind me, I'll send it out. But basically, we have staff meetings every day, and we talk about what people are doing individually in their skill development, and then what our practice is going to be like. Legit tonight, 8:30, I have a Zoom with Coach Oates and our staff, and we'll talk about planning for tomorrow and the next day. And how many days we're training this week, when our off days are, and what we want to get out of those sessions. So basically, our coaching staff has a pretty good idea by now of like, hey, here's our thresholds. Like, how hard do you want this to be? Okay, that's about 250 on a trimp. And we've explored a little bit like tagging drills. And so we know like one of the features I like is trimp per minute. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out like a transition drill is going to be really freaking hard. Half court might be a little bit less demanding. So yeah, we plan it out like that with coaching staff. I'll give suggestions. Again, I don't expect them to agree with everything that I suggest, but I say here's the data. You can use it how you want to.
So, which drill is going to be the most demanding at practice? You mentioned transition, but like, what's the exact drill that Bama uses that guys are going to get up in the red zone?
Yeah, we have a drill called Texas and Cardinal. These drills are like 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, so they're constant. They're just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there's no like, if you come to a Bama practice, there's not a lot of downtime. We're moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's one of the things I appreciate about our environment is like I think learning is immersive, and our practices are fully immersive. So like you're learning on the fly. You know, Nate Oates was a high school teacher, so he's got a teacher's heart. So he'll stop things and he'll teach. But for the most part, he's letting people make mistakes and learn from those. And if they don't learn from the mistakes, then we stop practice.
And on that same, similar to Coach Oates, now, I guess have you've been around to a bunch of other programs. I've been with a lot as well. I've never seen anybody that's got as many data points up during practice as you guys do. A rough estimate, I don't know, you had 20 or even more. I'm not sure. But have you seen anybody else that operates kind of at that level as far as the data points?
There's probably some NBA teams that do. It's amazing. So Adam Bowman, he kind of runs it's called Bamalytics. And so like every practice is statted. I mean, every stat you can think of. And players get a report after every practice. They can see exactly how they did. And I think that's great because it's objective feedback. Just like we're using heart rate data, they're using statistical data on the court to communicate with players. And to me, data to me is supposed to be a bridge. It's not supposed to be a barrier. So it's supposed to give you information. What happens is when we get emotional about that information, that it starts to tweak people's minds. Like if you shot, 7 for 8, you probably shot it pretty well. If you shot 1 for 7, not so good. You know.
Yeah, I've seen some cases where the strap was throwing their shot off, and a couple of those situations, I've just shown them a picture of Steph Curry wearing our belt, and they got pretty quiet after that. So if he can drop those with the belt on, it's not going to throw your shot off
It's
either.
always the strap, man. It's always
Um, so we've hit kind of on court pretty solid here. I want to talk about a little bit sleep, stress, lifestyle. Kind of how do you help your players with the off court stuff?
we've tried at Liberty. I did a little bit more with the HRV feature in first beat, more because it was a more stable environment. Like I knew that my guys were coming in at the same time every day. Even then, it's hard when you have a guy running from class or wherever, their heart rate's going to be elevated, so it throws it off. But man, so the way that we kind of attack that is like holistically, like it's a global attack. Clark Holter again, our director of sports medicine, he's really good about getting these guys in a treatment routine where they come in and they do the same thing every day. They build some rhythm and routine to their lives. We have flotation beds, we have the compression pants, we have contrast therapy. We have everything we need here, so depending on how a player's feeling. And again, this is like some guys love massage. makes them feel great. Other guys, man, I don't feel myself. It takes them a couple days to respond to that, So we've used Aura rings. I've used Whoop in the past, so I'm kind of product agnostic, I guess. It's just feedback. But yeah, anything. I mean, all the normal stuff: massage, hydrotherapy, hot cold, compression.
Nice. Now, when we talk about the off-court stuff, now if you do get an injury, you had already mentioned the like nutrition staff and medical staff working with you. So return to play protocol. Can you kind of walk me through how do you apply first beat to your return to play protocol?
Yeah, big picture, we reverse engineer it. So we have a guy coming back, Latrell Wright, from Achilles in November at the Vegas tournament. So man, I gotta say this because it's on my heart, man. Two of the best players in the world have had significant injuries. Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum in the last month, right? And these are players who are playing for the best organizations in the world. People I know on the strength staff, they're elite. So I get a little bit jammed up when people talk about injury like prevention. Like when you're playing at an elite level, there's not injury prevention, man. Like you can do things to mitigate it. You can do things to lessen the severity of it. And I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox a little bit, but you know, this is hard, man. It's hard for me and it's hard for the athletes. So when you're in these environments, man, it's you have to be here to understand it. So kind of back to your question, it's reverse engineering. And then like this morning, Latrell Wrightsell, he's on the court, he's working his way back up, heart rate straps on. Hey, we don't want to go past 125 today. You're just coming back. We're not trying to spike you. I had a professor in college, and she used to say all the time, too much, too fast won't last. And I thought that's corny. Too much, too fast won't last. Well, when you're coming back, like soft tissue injuries are prevalent in the first part of a training cycle. Why? Because there's these huge spikes, and coaches come back and like, they want to just destroy guys. Well, no, to me, like if I destroy a guy on Monday, it's going to affect our training Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe by Friday we could be back to normal. So, a lot there. Sorry, but that's had to get it out.
No, I think that's good to know that there is a huge push for, injury prevention, but at the same time, sometimes regardless, it's going to happen. And it's kind of all about how is that athlete going to respond or how are you going to respond? Um, and I'm assuming with that, there's a lot of trust there because I mean, these athletes are coming to you now and they're coming to the staff and saying, okay, ACL knee is out. When can you get me back? How quickly can you get me back? But I think it's also something some of the coaches get or staff get nervous that it still requires that eye. It still requires the communication. It's not just you look at these numbers and say, now you're coming to get back. It's still the 10, 15, 20 years of experience that you say, okay, yeah, he's looking smooth. His shots are going down. What does first beat say? Okay, cool. I think we're on track.
Yeah, again, one of the most valuable ways I use first speed is like literally I have the iPad on the court, I'll take it. We'll get to the red, 90% or above, right? Okay, hey, we're at the free throw line. We're not doing anything else until you're back in the blue. All right, what does that mean? It's about 60, 50, 60% of your max heart rate. And I think of it almost the same as I do in the weight room. We have Prelipin's chart. Hey, you're gonna work at 80% of your max effort today. You're gonna work at 90%. We're working more strength or power or whatever it is. I I I I think heart rate is almost on par with that for me. Like we're gonna do 10 bouts at 80% today. Or hey, we're gonna do five at 90. It's gonna be hard, but we're gonna do less work. You know, so that's kind of how I kind of layer the two.
Nice. And when we talk about layers again, so when we mentioned external, internal. Uh, so going back to your days with Liberty when you started to use Kinexon now, obviously with Bama still rolling with Kinexon, solid company, great people to work with. We have a lot of clients that we work together with. Uh, so I do get a lot of coaches coming up to me saying, "Hey, I've got Kinexon, I've got a year under my belt. I want to add First Beat." What would you say to them? How do they get started with First Beat on top of the Kinexon?
One, I'd say definitely do it. I think it's valuable. So again, the layer piece. Uh, Coach Ballou, he's the director of football performance over there. He talks to me about checks and balances, right? About layers. So whatever you want to use as your first layer is fine. Maybe it's first beat, maybe it's Connexon, maybe it's force plates, whatever it is, right? He says, look, we have kind of a three-tier system. We don't freak out if one number's off. We look at the next layer, and then we look at the next layer. If they're all three, saying there's a yellow flag, we have an intervention. We do something. We talk to the coach, we talk to the player, whatever has to happen. So I think when you can stack data, it just again, I'll go back to you and me running a mile, right? Uh, Man, it could be super easy for you, really hard for me, or vice versa. And we have all these implications that led up to that. What if I only ran a mile once in that 365 days and that was it? What if I ran it every other day? What if I ran it, half the days? So you got the macro and the micro, and then the layer piece of internal, external, and the subjective feedback from players. I think, man, that gives you a holistic view of what you're looking for. You know.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really important not just depend on a single system, even whether it's first beat or whether it's external. Having that combination giving you that full picture look.
Yeah, yeah, it's really it's intriguing to me. Like some people will probably be like, no, external's it, or internal load is it, or whatever it is. To me, you can't have a full picture if you don't have these things combined. And I think, people have done this before without first beat, without Connexon, like I mean before they were created. So it could be done. It's intuition, it's having a coach's eye, it's knowing, at what point to push players, you know. But when you can have concrete feedback to give coaches and players, I think it makes it so much clearer, so much more crisp to make progress.
And I think you had a unique situation here at Bama when we talk about kind of the culture there. So you lost your top two assistants last year. Uh, and it seems like you didn't skip a beat. I mean, you had another great season. How do these new people coming in? How do they buy into the culture and kind of how do you introduce the first beat metrics to them?
Same way, man. Just start foundationally. One, I think Oates hires a broad range of people. We got a lot of guys coming in from the NBA. They're vets, man. They know exactly what they're doing, so they don't miss a beat coming in. They just hit the ground. They're running. It's I I love it. I get to learn from all types of different minds. I'm a hoop head first, so I love the basketball piece of it, understanding the X's and O's and the tactics of it. But man, these guys, they've been working at a high level for a long time, so they come in and it's kind of an expectation, that we're working at that same level. So for me, it pushes me to find ways to communicate. Again, I try to keep it as simple as possible. It might be one graphic of like, hey, here's what we're doing, similar to what you showed earlier. And
Mhm.
then if you have questions, ask them, and that's how I communicate with them.
Cool. Want to fire away with a couple randoms. Uh, what was that awe moment, or what's your best moment at Bama? Kind of maybe when you took a step back and realized I'm at one of the top programs in the country here, you know.
Man, the SEC is different. It's a different animal all the way. The athletes are phenomenal. It's great to watch. So I came to Bama for two reasons. One, I want to work with pros, but not be in the pros. I've had opportunities to interview with NBA teams. I have four kids, my kids. I want to be part of their lives. So I don't know if the travel life is conducive to me raising my kids the way I want to. And then number two, I want a chance to win it all every year. You know, so those are the two main reasons. And then, I kind of live by faith. So I feel like this is where God has me right now. My job is to serve the best I can. So yeah, man. There's a lot in that. So keep digging on it. I kind of like that trail.
No, I like that too. No, I think there's a plan for all of us. It seems like you're doing pretty well at this moment, I would say.
But anyway, so if I had to pick one moment, I'm sorry. If I had to pick one moment, man, going to the Final Four was ridiculous. It was better than I ever imagined. It was elite, man. In every sense of the word, you get off the plane, there's people to greet you. They got the carpet out. They got all the trophies. So man, that to me is that was like a pinch me moment of like, man, I'm here. Like this is a great opportunity. So hopefully we'll get back there again and have a chance to win it.
Was going to say, I remember your message. You said something like, "All right, getting ready to train so we can be playing again." And the what second week of April, whenever that exactly is, the Final Four or the final.
Hmm.
Uh, and something we always gotta establish when we're talking about basketball. Could you please announce who is the greatest of all time? Who is the GOAT of basketball?
Hey, for me, it's MJ, man. Like that's kind of my era of basketball. I think he's a winner. I love The Last Dance, so I think that's really hard, man. You can't say you love one kid more than the other. I mean, Kobe. LeBron. I mean, I mean, I love Magic Bird, but MJ for me, if I had to pick one, is my GOAT.
Excellent. Okay, we're still friends. Um, so you yourself, you were a three-time All-American playing basketball at Multnomah University. Do you still lace it up? Do you ever hit the court still?
Man, I'm an old head, man. I'm coming up on 50, which I can't even comprehend in my mind. I feel young, but man, look, there's levels to this. I played at a small school. It's a NAIA school, and I had some success there. But man, when you get around NBA players and when you get around players at this caliber, there's a difference, man. There's a genetic difference, and there's a so that I shoot and stuff with guys once in a while, just having fun, nothing serious. Play with my son, but I don't hoop anymore like that, man.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, do you ever hop out and hang around with those guys? But then when I was there and I was like, okay, that's the number 12 guy in the rotation who I thought before everyone came had to be, like a starter. It's unreal the kind of talent
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you working with daily there.
Yeah. No, it's super fun, man. You learn so much from watching these guys move, like I try to reverse engineer things and how guys move and their movement signatures and there's kind of their special powers, and I like to talk with them about it. I like to, just learn about it.
And I think kind of the last random I had, so NIL and NBA, and I don't want to dive down the NIL because that's just a rabbit's hole we don't want to get into. But uh, just this new, it looks like, and you've kind of already accepted it because you were dealing with a lot of these one and dones where they're coming to you and you've got a year because they're going to be an NBA pick the next year. So I'm assuming most of your programming is more or less for like a year or two. You don't have the 4-year plans that you maybe would have applied a few years ago.
For sure, man. There's a lot to that too. Training age, I always expect there's a huge training age. Like people are really well versed in the weight room. The more the elite they are, that to me hasn't been the case. So, man, simplicity with excellence is how I try to attack that. I'm trying to make what can we do to make an immediate impact, and what can we do to set you up long term. So, man, there's beauty in both worlds. Like I love the opportunity to work with these athletes. I loved working with the athletes at Liberty because I knew I had them for 4 years. Like we could really build an athletic development program. Uh, so it's not a lot different. It's just we simplify as much as we can. Like the main thing here is that they hoop and then they're healthy, and so that's what I'm trying to keep them at.
Nice. Okay, cool. We're about set for time. I wanted to hop into the questions and answers section. Basically, are you using kind of like maximal intensity periods? Are you using those high intensity periods? Like basically, I've been thinking time above 90%.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So look, when you get a report at the end, here's one of my favorite pieces about First Beat. After every practice, I can look at individual reports and I can see how much time a specific player has spent over 90% of their max heart rate. So let's take like a case study kind of thing. We have two athletes. It's exact same practice. One spent, over half his time in the red. The other didn't hardly touch it. You know, is one more in shape or is one less in shape? We talked about the variables that come into that. Maybe one slept, one didn't. Maybe one ate right before, maybe one didn't. But I do use those to kind of customize training programs, especially from a conditioning standpoint. So if I see a guy and he's in the red all the time, I'm asking questions first, like, hey, what's going on in your life? How you feeling? And it's been pretty cool because when I see guys that are in the red consistently over time, man, more often than not, they're sick or there's an injury, a small like nick or knack kind of thing. And so I use those to kind of pair back and teach guys how to get into the red, feel what it feels like, and then recover. Get into the red, see what it feels like, and then recover. And I think that translates to the court and it helps us out a bit.
Okay, definitely. Let's see. Another question. I really like this one too. I think this is something that's not looked at enough. How much do game day warm-ups affect load? I've seen coaches with dynamic warm-ups and then drills for 20 to 30 minutes and sometimes longer. How do you manage your pregame?
Huge, huge. It's been a big change for me. Remind me, I'll include this, but what we did is we practice on game days at Alabama. Like we have an actual practice. It used to be very, very intense, and we tracked using Connexon and First Beat. and we're asking our guys to do a lot of work before the actual game, you know. So for me personally, I've changed my warm up where it's not as taxing. We can get the same amount of prime and prep that we need in a shorter time, you know. So, and again, this is individualized. What I've noticed also is that some guys run hot. And what I mean by that is their heart rate before the game starts, that could be anxiety, it could be a mental state, it could be a lot of other factors. But some guys have an engine that just burns a little hotter, you know. So I don't freak out about their heart rate being a little bit elevated. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I would, if you have the opportunity, track your warm up and see like what it cost you trimp wise, right? So I don't want to spend 50 trimp points in a warm up. I want to spend maybe like 15 to 30 at most. So that's how I attack it.
Excellent. Let's see. So do you program conditioning on top of practice days, or how do you use First Beat to program out summer preseason conditioning?
Great question. Our main conditioning comes from practice because it's so intense. But during the summertime and preseason, we sprint two two times a week. So I'm a big fan of hills and what they do from an just biomechanical standpoint of angles of attack, and then the physiology piece of having guys work at max effort. And again, I think of building condition like stacking, like stacking. So I call it accumulation. I would rather run, you know, a lot of short burst sprints than just long distance, especially because our guys are getting anywhere from 3 to 7 miles into practice.
And I think that makes sense also with your playing style. Like you said, you
Yeah.
guys are just go, 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 go.
Yeah. So,
Um,
you know, at Liberty, we did some hill running too, but it was much longer, you know. So what we try to do is build the resilience to handle like load over time because that's how we played, you know. So our conditioning was much more spread out like that, you know, or lengthwise.
I remember the videos of that. So they're at that like the official ski hill there
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Liberty.
yeah.
Yeah. Just one comment. Henry could go as a player. Uh, let's
Appreciate
do
that, whoever it was.
let's do this last one. So, what is your advice for a strength coach looking to get into a D1 setting? Do you feel completing a master's degree and working as a GA is a must?
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough. Well, for sure, you know, to work in the NCAA, you have to have the NSCA, CSCS, or the CSCCA certifications. Um, I have a love-hate relationship with formal education. I love to learn. Like I love to learn on my terms. You know, when I get into a really box setting, it's hard for me. I feel kind of bogged down. But man, I would, if you have the means, I would get a master's because I think that gives you a little bit of credibility. I think we're getting to the point in our society and our age where degrees aren't going to mean much anymore. Can you do the job or can't you do the job? Uh, Listen, if I had to do one thing, I would get with a mentor. For me, I have a picture of Jim Radcliffe up here, University of Oregon. I think he's one of the best in the world. I was fortunate enough to be around him. I've had a lot of people, Fergus Conley, who've mentored me and really challenged the way I think and pushed me to be the professional I am today. So mentorship, big.
All right, thank you. That's the last question. Let's go ahead. See if I can get my tech skills working again. Okay, so just wanted to give you a quick heads up for our next webinar because it is based on basketball as well. So we have Dom from the Bundesliga Rostavekta. I do apologize. There's no way I pronounced that correct, but he'll be coming back with a webinar. So be sure to sign up for that. And just, I've had a blast, Hen. I really appreciate you coming out today. I think a lot of people are going to take a lot from this. And so really appreciate your time.
Man, it's always a pleasure to be with you, man. Look, this is how I operate. My number is 503-545-7080, 503-545-7080. My email is hbarrera at ia.ua.edu. Uh, Hit me up if I can help you in any way. I think we all learn from each other, so it's always a blessing to just share thoughts.
Excellent. Yeah, and I can vouch for that. I know I've reached out to you sometimes with questions, and it's never been hard to get an answer from you. So I do appreciate that. Those texts that come sometimes at odd hours since I'm overseas. But
Yeah. All right, man. Good to be with you, man. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, and I'm looking forward to what you guys have for the court next season. So we'll catch up with you then.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.